That doesn't seem fair. How could a good God cause someone to be sinful and then judge them for their sin? This just doesn't add up to me. So as you're in conversations with people about Pharaoh's hard heart, this, I think, is a really helpful tool. So as I was working on my Exodus commentary, getting to the chapters where this comes up repeatedly, and it's in the plagues, the signs and wonders chapters, what I noticed is that there's actually 3 different Hebrew words that all refer to what happens to Pharaoh's heart. So 3 different words, they don't all mean the same thing, but usually they're translated the same way into English. They're all just lumped together into hardening of the heart. One of those words, so the first 2 are more or less synonymous. They mean his heart is made firm. Now in English, to have a hard heart is to be cruel or to be unyielding. Like hard-heartedness is like lack of empathy. You know, that's one of the ways we think about it. That's not really what it means in Hebrew or in Egyptian. To have a firm heart in Hebrew or Egyptian is to have a heart that's unresponsive, or to have a heart that's determined to get the job done. This is what I tell students at Biola University is, if you want to graduate, you need to have a firm heart. You can't just kind of try to graduate. You can't just show up to class sometimes and do some of the work. You actually have to be determined that you are going to get the job done, and you have to show up to class and you have to complete the assignments and study for your tests and get that internship, and all of that requires a firm heart. Normally, in the book of Exodus, when Pharaoh is described as having a firm heart, it's what God does to Pharaoh. God gives him a firm heart so that he can finish what he started. Nobody's making Pharaoh do what he hasn't freely chosen to do. Pharaoh freely chooses this path, and God eggs him on. He says, all right, finish what you started. The third Hebrew word is different. The third Hebrew word talks about making Pharaoh's heart heavy. And this is where things get lost in translation, and probably why it doesn't show up in our English Bibles, because for us, to have a heavy heart means what? To be sad. And this is not about Pharaoh being sad. I think that to have a heavy heart is an echo of an Egyptian concept that was super important to them. I already told you they're obsessed with the afterlife. They're making preparations for it all their life. And one of the things they imagine will happen in the afterlife is that they'll go through a period of testing to see whether they qualify to live in the underworld. And there's a document that you may have heard of called the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which actually isn't a book. It's a series of spells that are customizable depending on who you are and what you want to include and how wealthy you are probably. And so if you're wealthy, you would commission someone, a scribe, to create a customized Book of the Dead for you that would include scenes like this one with all of the stuff you need to be able to say. And the scenes are painted in such a way that you're going to come out positive, right? That as you go through this challenge, you will beat the challenge. So this is like your Cliff's Notes that you're taking with you, or your cheat sheet that you're taking with you into the afterlife. So that when you get to this challenge, you know what to say and you know how you want it to turn out. And so people would actually be buried with these documents so that they had them in the afterlife. And one of the most popular scenes or spells to include in the Book of the Dead is the weighing of the heart. So here's a drawing of it so we can see it a little more clearly. This is this particular version of it is the version of Hunefer. This is the guy in the white clothes on the left is Hunefer. He's the dead guy. He's preparing to be dead when he has this commissioned, but then he's actually dead when it gets buried with him. He's being led by the Egyptian god Anubis, who's holding the symbol of life. He's being led to this next challenge. And the challenge is a huge scale on which 2 things are weighed. On the left, we have a little jar that contains the heart of Hunefer. On the other side of the scale is a feather that represents the Egyptian concept of ma'at. Ma'at is a difficult word to translate, but it's basically the idea of righteousness. It includes order and harmony, and you're in right relationship with your neighbors. You haven't defrauded anyone. You haven't caused a ruckus wherever you went. If you maintain ma'at, you're a good citizen, a righteous citizen. And so the goal is for your heart to be level with ma'at. If it's heavier than ma'at, you are guilty of injustice. And you will be gobbled, your heart will be gobbled up by that composite dude who's there. He's like a part hippo, part lion, part alligator. His name is Amit, and he just gobbles up your heart, and then whoop, there we go, no afterlife for you, because you need your heart, of course. And the guy at the end is the god Thoth, who is the scribal god. He's writing down whether you pass the test or not. He's keeping notes, keeping score. So this is, I think, super interesting, because if this really is the background for the concept of Pharaoh's heavy heart, here's what we need to know. Whenever Pharaoh's heart is made heavy, almost all the time, it's Pharaoh who's making his own heart heavy, which is a kind of tongue-in-cheek way of saying Pharaoh is failing to be a good ruler even by his own standards, never mind God's. He's ruling, he's supposed to be ruling according to the Egyptian principles of Ma'at, and by opposing Yahweh, he's wreaking havoc on the whole land. All the plagues that come are coming to disrupt Ma'at. How can you say that Pharaoh is maintaining order in his realm when there's frogs everywhere, and then the locusts come and eat all the crops, and then the hail's destroying everything? These things are disruption to the natural order, and so Pharaoh is being shown to be a terrible ruler. So God uses the idiom or figure of speech that would make sense in an Egyptian context, and we saw lots of examples of these. These are pictures from the museum in Cairo, different versions where you can see the heart being weighed. This one's got vultures. I'm just going to point out the vultures at the top that are standing guard, and we'll come back to vultures later. This one's interesting because this was in the little temple in the workman's village in Deir al-Medina, and you can see that there's a deity figure there who's actually holding on to the ropes, and kind of like he's there to balance it for you so that it comes out right. Don't notice, this isn't a record of what happened. This is what they hope will happen. Like, hey, if I'm a little short on the balance, could you just kind of even that out for me? But we think of God giving us his mercy and grace on Judgment Day, and the Egyptians had the same idea. They needed mercy and grace on Judgment Day. Okay, so that's Pharaoh's hard heart.